Welcome to the Unscripted SEO Interview Podcast. Yes, it's 100% unscripted, 100% unrehearsed, 100% unedited, and 100% real. I'm your host, Mark A. Preston. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured to welcome the SEO podcast king himself, Mordy Oberstein. Sorry, Mordy, I'm not sure if I pronounced your last surname correctly.
No, you got it. You got it right. You got it right. Thanks for having me.
For those people who are watching and listening who don't happen to know who you are, please could you give an overview of who Mordy is and what you do in the SEO community?
So let's start. I was born at a very young age, and no, just kidding. I'm the head of SEO branding at Wix, which basically means I'm sort of I don't know how to put this. I try to make sure, to the best of my ability, that the messaging we put out and the content we put out around SEO, whether it be for the wider SEO community or for our own users of various kinds, because there are very different kinds of users who use Wix, speaks to SEO in the most accurate, precise, and well-intentioned way possible.
Wonderful.
That's what I do.
And I noticed on your bio you do something with SEMrush as well.
Yeah, so I used to work at SEMrush.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you work for Wix or SEMrush, because I'm a bit confused.
I work for Wix and I consult for SEMrush.
Right. Okay.
Actually, somebody asked me the other day, like, why do you want to partner up with us? Don't you work for SEMrush? Well, I consult for SEMrush, but I work for Wix, and whatever works for Wix is what I do first.
Good, great stuff. When did you start in the SEO industry? How far back, or was it?
I'm not good with time. Let's think. 8 years, 9 years. I started off. I was working for. I'll tell you where I started off. I started off working. I was a property manager a long time ago. That has nothing to do with SEO. I was a teacher for a while in Baltimore City. That does have a lot to do with SEO, actually. It's a different conversation. But more immediately, I started working for an educational software company. I was writing their teacher manuals, and I was helping to build out their lesson planning. And I was one of the only native English speakers at the company. And they're like, hey, could you write web content for us? I could write anything because I have a very strong content background. And they're like, okay, great. We want you to build up our organic presence. We want to get organic traffic from Google. I'm like, that's a great idea. What's that? And that's how I essentially started finding. Actually, I think the first thing I found, if I remember correctly, trying to understand how I'm going to actually do this, was Search Engine Land's periodic table of SEO, whatever they call it. I think they still have it, right?
Yeah.
They don't advertise it much, but it's still there if you're listening to this or watching this. And that's how I started getting into SEO. And then from there, I did a little bit of consulting after that, and I started working for a tool called Rank Ranger, managing their content. So I very much come from the content side of SEO, and then one thing led to another, and then I was at Wix, I was at SEMrush, now I'm back at Wix. It's the usual.
Right. So basically, like most other people, you stumbled into the industry.
Completely by accident.
Yes. I was going to say. So how much do you think the industry's changed since then and now?
It's completely different. I know if you're listening, I've been doing SEO for 15 years. You'll say it was completely different when I started. When I started, I would say it was just before the big thing around SERP features. Like, I don't know what you want to call it, SERP feature Armageddon, since we love calling things Armageddon in the SEO industry. So Google, I think, released featured snippets in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. But it didn't really become a thing. I say 2015, 2016, and answer boxes, direct answers started becoming a much bigger thing around that time. And people started really paying attention to what's going on with SERP features. If you fast forward now, there's still conversation around SERP features. But I remember back in the day, because I remember I was the one feeding Barry the information, or one of the people. There's Dr. P. There's a bunch of other people doing it. You would see SERP feature trend, all of a sudden, Google's not showing as many feature snippets anymore. You don't really see that show up anymore. And the other day, Bertie Clark, I think, tweeted out that SEMrush was showing that Twitter boxes we're down. You don't really see that kind of tweet or that kind of article up on SE Roundtable anymore the same way. I think that's sort of calmed down. I'm trying to remember the timelines. I'm not good at this, but I think you know what it was? It was a CCTLD update, which was, again, not good at time. I'm going to say 2017, maybe 2018. I'm really bad at years. And around then, Google actually changed the way they make SERP feature changes. It used to be like very much like global changes. First, feature snippets went down. There were less feature snippets on the SERP. That was across the board in all geos or most geos, or you would see it by region. So like Nordic countries would go up, but the US and the UK and Canada, they wouldn't. Or the UK and the US and Canada would change their trends around certain SERP features, but the Nordic countries wouldn't. That kind of changed with the CCTLD update. So the Google kind of made a change around that time. You do still see shifts, but I would kind of say that novelty has worn off. You kind of gotten used to the fact that you're going to have to target SERP features, and you're going to have to consider getting your there's an image box, have a URL show up in there, get image search traffic. That isn't the predominant conversation anymore. At least maybe it is. I just don't see it. But
do you think that's because SERP features has become sort of the norm now, whereas in the past it was sort of classed as the advanced stuff, but now it's just things people do as a norm? Do you think that's
totally
part of, obviously part of the industry changing as well?
I think so. I think at this point, right? For example, I rank number 2, but it's below a feature snippet.
Yeah.
Or we've gotten to the point, I think, where I remember like back in the day, it was like a novel thing to say, like, make sure you understand what kind of feature snippet you have. For example, if you have a paragraph feature snippet, very often the entire answer is in the actual paragraph Google's showing on the SERP. Whereas you have a list, people tend to feel like, am I getting the full list? Because Google has a little thing that says see more, see full list. I remember the exact language, so I'll click through. Back in the day, that's pretty novel. I think now we understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I remember when featured snippets come about, and in my head, everyone was raving about it. And suddenly in my head, I was thinking, this is actually going to reduce the amount of traffic for a lot of people because they don't have any reason to click through because they're answering the question.
I remember, I'm going to get years. I'm going to say 2018 or maybe 2019. It could have been 20. No, it couldn't have been 2017.
Listen, don't worry about years. I can't even remember my kid's date of birth.
There you go. So I have the same thing. I screw one up all the time. I did a study showing that I took feature snippets from, the years prior, paragraph feature snippets. I did all of them. This was particularly about paragraph feature snippets. And it showed that the text inside of those feature snippets were getting shorter. You think, oh, that's good. Google is showing less. It wasn't getting shorter. Google was showing less. It was getting shorter because Google was showing the actual answers at the rest of the fluff.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. I think, like, the R. I by the way, I hate most of the CTR studies because most of the CTR studies are like on these like high search volume keywords, and they're not. I don't think that 15% or 20% or 25% at position 1 is the actual CTR. When I looked at it, it was something around 5 or 6% because I looked at a much more normalized data set. So I don't like getting the CTR studies. I don't really trust them. I know there are CTRs that show like, X% of feature snippets get X% of CTR. I think for certain kind of feature snippets, and I'm speculating here, I think it's much lower than you think it is.
Right. Well, you touched upon data, as they say, there. Obviously, with your existing roles, you must have access to lots and lots of very huge data sets. Is there anything that you've seen that you think, what is this? What is any sort of light bulb moment in any sort of data that you think, how on earth is this happening? Or any differentiators?
I'm trying to think, was there a moment I saw like, wow, like that seems crazy? If there was, I don't remember, but there are definitely been moments where you look at the data over a long period of time. Like rank volatility data is like this. I think people don't realize. You like go on Twitter and ask Dr. Pete how complicated it is to track rank volatility. It's insanely complicated. One is because the way the tools work, the weather tools are, it's all relative, right? So they're all in the green, or they're all showing, normal levels of volatility one day, and then they show a spike the next day. But what's normal now is not normal from 5 years ago. Rank is way more volatile now than it was 5 years ago. So if you were to look at like what's considered normal now would have been insanely volatile if you looked at the weather tools back then, because it's all relative. And then like there's all these reversals and tracking things and winners and losers list. By the way, I wouldn't trust a winners and losers list if it were me, which is why I tend not to include them when I do a write-up. I think I've done them twice. I did the one time at Rank Ranger, I did one, and I'm like, okay, this is a hot mess. I'm never doing this again. and I did one when I first started at SEMrush. I think like two or so weeks after I started, there was a core update, and they asked me to look at the data. I'm like, okay, here's the data. I think we should reduce some of the data, which they did, and their data now is amazing around the core updates. And they said, oh, here's the format we use for the post. And I think I just did the winners and losers because I didn't want to mess with their format 2 weeks into starting a new job kind of thing. So this is the only time I've ever done a winners and losers list. But be careful with them, because a lot of the times what happens is, this is something I've noticed over time. Like I think like looking at data for me has been like seeing repetitive patterns over and over again. And one of the repetitive patterns is that with winners and losers lists, one of the things that makes it hard is what Google tends to do. They do it way more often now than they used to. They'll reverse ranking patterns over and over and over again. And particularly one of the things that they do is they'll implement an unconfirmed update before, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before a confirmed update. They'll reverse it, and the core update will reverse that reversal. So let's say a site was ranking number 1, it goes down to number 20. That's a test. And then Google, with the core update, let's say, puts it back up to number 1. So it's a lot of times these unconfirmed updates are just end up being a reversal. So you, as a winner or loser list, you'll pick that up. Oh, this site won. It didn't really win, because if you go back 3 weeks, it was already ranking number 1. It lost tons of rank because Google was running a test before the actual real update hit. So a lot of the times the winners and losers list will pick those up as, wins or losses. So just be careful with that.
Yeah, I'm noticing quite a lot of bouncing around in the SERPs at the moment. Obviously, I work in the local space a lot, and especially in the local space at the moment, things seem to be bouncing around like crazy. It's just, you can't just say, look, that's how it is. It's because, like I say, it's all relative to everything. I
have access to like super secret SEMrush data. Yeah.
Come on, then. Spill your beans. What can you share?
You've seen me tweet it out. Like if you ever once in a while, you're like, I'll tweet something out and it has like the SEMrush logo. And you're like, where's that data inside of SEMrush? That's my secret sauce dashboard that they built for me. Which they should put into the actual tool. It's a really good tool the way they have it set up. Anyway, so I track rank or I track volatility pretty frequently and pretty carefully. So one of the things that I've noticed is like there's way more volatility happening. I've tweeted a lot about this. If you go through and like find them, I don't know how you find them, but anyway, there's way more. I think I pulled data on it, something like from 2020 to 2021. There was like a 70% increase in the number of days showing high levels of volatility. Now, to qualify that, when I pull more data later I'll plug it for a state of search study that we published through SEMrush. You can download that. It's free. In there, we show that there's, yes, more days of high volatility, but the drastic level of swings, like the level of volatility itself, how drastic it is less. So more volatility, less drastic. I speculate because you're already starting at a higher level of volatility anyway, so it's harder to go up it's easier to like go from like a 5 to an 8 level of volatility. If you're already at 8, where are you going?
Yeah.
Right. but there's way more volatility happening. I was talking to our own team here at Wix, and we're running a whole blog post. They what do you want to talk about? I'm like, oh, I want to talk about rank volatility, how the patterns have changed. And they're like, what you just wrote is exactly what we see inside of our own rankings, which is what you're seeing for your local rankings.
Yeah,
there's just, and I see it from my own sites that I'm working on. Like there's just way more volatility, a lot of reversals, a lot of testing, it seems like, right? And it could be a day later, you return to normal, a week later, 3 days later, or 3 months later, but there's a lot of testing going on. And it makes it that, to me at least, if you're tracking rank volatility, they used to be like, okay, here is an algorithm update, whether confirmed or unconfirmed. I can trust for the most part, this is my new ranking. Or I'll wait a couple of days. Okay, there was a reversal, there wasn't a reversal, I'm good. But now I see a reversal. Fine. I'm still thinking in my head, in a couple of days, I'll probably see another reversal. So it becomes a much longer, if you're tracking rank, it becomes a much longer trend that you really should be looking at, as opposed to like, this more snapshot of time that we're used to looking at. I'll look at like 3 months now and be like, okay, here's the trajectory. Much like you do with impressions out of Search Console. You're not really looking at the last like week or so. You're really looking at and the Search Console defaults this way, the last 3 months for that reason. And just kind of say, okay, what's the trajectory? Am I going up? Am I going down? What's happening here? That's kind of how you have to look at rank now, I think.
Yeah. So as an industry, when an SEO is looking at all this volatility, what are they supposed to do?
Well, it depends. It's about, I'll qualify that though. It depends on the larger trend. Like if the larger trend is that you're going up, but you see these significant moments where like you've lost 20 positions, like I would personally ignore that. Right? Whatever reason, I think Google's doing a lot of machine learning testing and recalibrating. I think where it's heading is, I think we're heading towards more, I'll call it, for lack of a better word, like a real-time algorithm, kind of like Penguin 4.0. Right, you see, back in the day, you had to wait for a Penguin update to come out to reverse whatever crap you were doing beforehand, and now you were good. Right, then in whatever year, I'm not going to try years again, Google released Penguin 4.0, and now it happens in real time. I think what you're seeing is Google updating rank more in real time, as opposed to waiting for these significant moments in time, i.e. core updates or whatever kind of official update to adjust rank. Which, by the way, from the data I looked at SEMrush, it looks like the core updates are becoming less powerful over time.
Right.
Which kind of supports what I'm saying. So I think like if you're looking at longer trends and you see for some reason every couple of weeks Google is demoting the rankings for this page, 20 positions, and then it puts right back up a couple of days later, I would ignore that. That wouldn't be my high priority kind of thing.
Right. Now, just getting to understand you as an SEO, what really irritates you about the industry?
Oh, how much time do we have?
Let's say top 3.
Top 3. Oh, man. Okay. One is how we use data. I think speaking of like start off with talking about data, let's talk more about data. I think we don't understand that data is a trend, right? Like the numbers you're getting, and like you'll see people, oh, the numbers in whatever tool you're using are not exactly. Yeah, they're not exactly. They're not supposed to be exactly right. The numbers you're seeing in Search Console aren't exactly right. The numbers you're seeing in analytics are not exactly right. For example, the case I always use, if you look at Google Analytics and you look at, let's say, Wix Analytics, the numbers will be different. Do you want to know why? Because the way that Wix filters out bot traffic and the way that Google filters out bot traffic are different algorithms. So the numbers are going to be different. What's important is the trend. Is the trend the same? Most likely the trends will be the same. Don't look at data like, oh, I have now 25 backlinks, or I have 25 this and 300 this. And my domain authority is 28.7. Like the numbers don't matter. It's the trends. Where's the data pointing you? And what does that data actually mean? Meaning, like, how do you qualify that data? Because most data, just so people understand, you're trying, I'd say outside of things like rank, a lot of the data that you're looking at is you're trying to qualify behavior. Like clicks, you're trying to qualify why people are doing something. And what you're trying to do is take a quantitative figure, which is a number of clicks, trying to explain why people are clicking, which is qualitative. And what you're hoping is that if I say that, okay, this page is good and things are working here because the volume of the quantity of the data is so much so that it must be that it explains what's qualitatively happening. But that's not a one-to-one. There's a schism there. You can have things like people are clicking through, but why? Why are they clicking through? And perhaps if you think of and understand why they're clicking through, you can make it even better and get more clicks. Right? It's like the data just leads you to a certain point because data are just numbers and data can't qualify behavior.
I think in the industry, not all of the industry, but some of the industry, it's kind of what I call a robot mindset. And if they just put logical thinking into things, they'd see things differently. On that. And it's surprising once they see things differently, and once they understand the why, then they'll tweak things and move things forward in a different way.
Yeah, totally. And that's, I think, what if you want to like call this my second pet peeve, or one A or 1B, it's the fact that we don't think conceptually about things sometimes. We think very much like a checklist mentality, which has its place in time and it's really good. But when you think conceptually, it's the difference between someone giving you a fish and being taught how to fish, kind of thing. And there's not a lot of people who do that. Like, for example, someone who comes to mind, like Kevin Indig, right? Somebody who thinks more conceptually about SEO. And then you can take that concept and you can apply it in a million different ways. Or Lily Ray, I like the things that you put out there because they're conceptual. You can take that and now have a wider understanding that can help you form like directionally or strategically where do you want to go with things. So I think there's a lack of that, especially lately. There's been a lack of that going on in the industry for some reason. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
And I guess the third one would be people are just kind of jerks to each other.
Yeah, I have noticed in the industry, I don't know what's going on, but a lot of the respectful conversations have gone. Right.
You show up on Twitter now, and I feel I'll just tell you personally how I feel. Like I feel like Twitter's become like a burden to me at this point. It's like annoying. I like it. I like it because I like interacting with people. It's a way to connect with people. There's a ton of people I really love and appreciate, and you get to interact with them. And I really enjoy Twitter from that perspective. And I've learned a ton from the things people have posted on Twitter. But what I find lately is people, are not really posting a lot of information. And when they are posting it, it ends up getting into like a fight. I think this, you think that, let's have at it. As opposed to, this is why I think this. This is why I think this. Are both sides reasonable? Yeah. So then just treat them as reasonable differences of opinion. And like, I'll look at that like, you know what? I kind of like this one better, but at least I'm able to see that dialogue. And then that to me sparks myself to start thinking about things a little bit differently. Just the back and forth. I don't know what I might conclude. I don't know which side to take on this one. But just that debate and conceptual stimulation, I think is just gone for some reason.
I think it's because a lot of people just make statements instead of quantifying why they think that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. So obviously perception is a very big thing. And once you read something, if you don't back it up with the why you think that, then you're going to take one or two directions. Because in your head, they're saying this, even if they didn't mean that.
Yep. That's a really bad thing. I think it's like a vicious cycle because I don't want to qualify anything because if I do, then someone's going to be like, that's stupid. So why do that? And it just creates this ongoing cycle of information not being shared the right way.
This is one of the things I've seen over the years change, because at one time it used to be, and it still should be, where it's just opinions. People do tests, they do different things, they try different things, and they get different results. And here's what they found. And I think if people stop doing that, then we'll never explore there's no right or wrong. It's just obviously what works for the individuals.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of unhealthy things going on. And I think there's a bunch of different causes. For example, like the level of content. I mean, maybe again, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's out there. I'm just missing it. So I don't want to say like unequivocally. But the level of content being shared, I think, has gone down tremendously. Like where's there a really good place where if you show up, other than say, I think SE Roundtable, I'm gonna get like really good content that no filler. It's just great content. I'll learn something from it.
On Wix.
Well, that, by the way, I will be honest with you, when we sat down to the SEO Learning Hub, so I remember having conversations with the team and with George Wynn when he joined, saying the entire unique selling point of this whole thing is that we don't need it for acquisition. There's the Wix blog, and they do things for acquisition. So we don't need to do things for acquisition. I'll like give you a little like inside scoop. Like I remember looking at a piece of content that somebody edited from one of the blog editors was editing before George joined. George Wynn, who was our head of SEO editorial, used to work at Search Engine Land, in case you know who he is. He's a super awesome guy. Before he joined, someone from the blog team was looking at and editing, and they were editing it from the lens of this is a blog post for the blog, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I said, like, stop. We can't do this because that person is editing it with an acquisition mindset, which makes sense because that's what they do. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm not saying the Wix blog content isn't good. It's amazing for a blog. I have all the blogs that are out there. Like I know Edon, like I know their team, like they're an amazing team. There's a lot of really good information there, but at the end of the day, it's going to have, your CTAs or whatever, because it is a funnel to get people into Wix. And that's what it should be. But our hub, like we don't need to do that. We have a blog. I'm not into ranking for keywords. I'm not trying to bring in traffic. I'm also of the opinion, and I'm using the whole hub, by the way, as a test to do this. And so far it's working out beautifully, that you don't need to like, I need to rank for this keyword. If you write about a topic, let's say it's, internal linking, and you don't worry about targeting the keyword, but you just worry about creating really good content, you'll probably end up ranking for it anyway, assuming the other things on your site are set up in order.
Do you know what? I explained this as I asked a question like, why do you think genuine bloggers drive a shit ton of organic traffic? They don't sit there thinking, I need to add this keyword, I need to add that. They just write about the topic. Right.
Do you know who's a great job of this? Animals. I don't know if you've ever seen their blog.
No,
they had definitely check that out. I should check it out more often. I'm like gonna like Google it, bring it up now. It's animals.co, animals with a Z at the end. They have a great blog. There was a recent post from Ryan Laws, I think his name is. Yeah, Ryan Law, about like why he was called "The Winner Doesn't Take It All: Information Gain in the New Future of SEO." It's a great post about like we think big domains grab everything, and he's like, no, they really don't. It's a beautiful post. It's really well written content. It kind of went viral on Twitter. That's the kind of thing you should be creating.
Brilliant. So why was the Wix SEO Learning Hub created initially?
Oh, it was created to help people learn about SEO. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that nuts?
It's like...
I will tell you, again, inside scoop. So we had somebody write a post about 301 redirects. And it was a really good post. But what they did was, because again, I think, and this just shows you how we're trained as writers, and it's a bad thing. They put in the post, all sorts of like plugs for Wix, like how to do it inside of Wix here and like inside of Wix over there and inside of Wix. We're like, no. This is a post about 301 redirects. It's not a tool post. We have a separate section on the hub about SEO tools, meaning how to use Wix and the tools inside of Wix for doing SEO. That's for that. And we'll have a post there about 301s, and that's when you do that. So we actually killed it. Not the post. We used the post, but we killed all that content about the Wix stuff. At the way end, we put like, if you're using Wix, here's how a short little section how you do it. And we actually had, it didn't go out yet. We had a contributor write for the hub who happens to work for one of the SEO tools. And they did that typical thing where they throw in I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. This is about whatever topic it is. Don't throw your tool in, make it usable for anybody, whether they use your tool, whether they don't use your tool. And they did that again because like they're a great writer, they're a great person. That's just a mindset that we have about doing things. And what I said to them was like, look, we're not doing it for our own tool. We're definitely not doing it for your tool.
Yeah. So, because a lot of people think the Wix SEO Learning Hub is just about how to do SEO on Wix.
No, not at all. It's about SEO for everybody, by the way, because we have many different kind of users. So we have content like what I call it foundational content. You know, I don't know how to write a title tag kind of thing, or what is a canonical tag? Why are they important? And we have like I just did analysis recently of the May 2022 core update, which is like a deep dive into that's on the hub. So there's content for everybody. We felt that it was important that if it's going to be a resource for learning SEO, then it should have all kinds of content for all kinds of SEOs.
Yeah. So getting on to Wix SEO specifically, as you know, I'm probably the first person in the SEO industry that publicly announced that I moved my site from WordPress to Wix back in 2017. I wrote a case study. Randfish Kim was kind enough to share it, and I got absolutely annihilated. Right. Let's just say annihilation is polite back then. Obviously, I know things have changed in the industry. Perception has changed because when I mention the word Wix now and SEO in the same context, I don't get abuse.
Yeah. First off, that really sucks if people did that to you.
Yeah, but as obviously you've been a key part in changing the mindset. I have to say that personally, from somebody that's tried, but no one's ever listened, basically. I'm not being funny, but
I give you a lot of credit. We all, by the way, internally, we all give you a lot of credit for being out there like that. We all appreciate that very much.
But what do you think it is about what you've done that's changed the mindset?
The way I personally think of it, whether this is accurate or not, it was kind of like the perfect storm in a good way. The product changed tremendously. It's, I would say circa 2019, the product really shifted in a big way. It has, even from 2019 to now, when you look back at it, it's shifted again in a big way, which is amazing. And it's going to keep going because there's amazing things coming along, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to plug the platform like that. So that was one part of it. Like, when I joined, I knew Nati Elimelech before I came to Wix. I knew him before he was at Wix. He was the one who actually brought me to Wix. And I knew if Nati was there, then this was good because Nati is amazing. Don't let him know that I said that because I like to give him crap, but he is amazing. So part of it was like, there was an actual story to tell in a legitimate way. Like, this was not what you think it is. And what I fundamentally did was, it wasn't that complicated, right? Wix, let's be honest, Wix is a great marketing engine. They are very good at marketing. But sometimes when you're good at marketing, I'll say this myself personally, learning from experience, when you're good at marketing, I'm not saying I'm good at marketing, I'm okay at marketing. You make the mistake of trying to market too much sometimes, or market to the wrong place. And you can't really market to SEOs. Like, you as an SEO, you're a marketer. Like, I firmly believe SEOs are marketers. I know it's a whole debate out there, blah, blah, blah. You can't market to marketers. They see right through you. It's like, you bring you're bringing your car, and a guy brings his car into the mechanic and, says, I need you to fix this. The mechanic, they're like, yeah, I need to fix this. You need to fix that. But the person they're speaking to without them knowing is actually the mechanic. And like, yeah, this is BS.
Yeah, that's happened to me. I'm actually a qualified mechanic.
Well, there you go.
And I go into the garage and it's like, yes, let's just see what they're going to say.
Right, exactly. So when you try to market to SEOs, and I think some of the, I think like you see this in the SEO tools also, like where they market themselves, sometimes they fall into the same trap, but that's a little bit different for different reasons. SEOs see right through it.
Yeah.
So all I did was say, like, look, I'm going to bring you the information. You make your own decisions. By the way, the marketing lesson behind that is, it's like, you have a landing page and it's got like 4 million CTAs. And it's just telling you buy. And you're wondering, why is nobody clicking anything? It's because people like to have autonomy, and you're not giving them that choice. You're trying to coerce them into making a sale, into executing the sale, rather. You have to give people the autonomy to make a choice, meaning you need to feel confident in your own product enough or service enough to say, I trust the user that if I give them the information, they'll make the right choice, which is all I really did. And I asked for feedback because no platform is perfect. Any platform that tells you that they're perfect, which, by the way, you see in the SEO tools, we're the best. Like, no one's the best. You're really good at X. You're really not that great at Y. Just kind of own that. There are always things to improve. And I say this legitimately. If you see something you don't like inside of Wix, come tell me. If it's something, even nothing related to SEO, I'll try to fix it. There was someone who had a whole problem with the way we were doing our logins, blah, blah, blah. So I brought it to whatever team that it was. It took a little while to find out who was the one that was responsible for it. And there was a whole discussion about how we fix this. And I think that's really important. I don't know why this doesn't happen more in the SEO world. Whatever tool, let us know what you like, don't like, and, take that feedback in. I think that's a really important thing to do. I think it's, where you see who did a really good job with that? Content King. I don't know if you've seen the way they talk.
Yeah.
Really good. Just good content. They're not overhyping the tool. They kind of just tell you what's in there, and you make your own decision. The tool is awesome, and it is awesome.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you, when Wix had such a bad reputation in the industry, what specifically was it that you thought, yes, I want to put my name to this and make a difference and make a change?
That's no one's ever asked me that. That's a great question. Well, one is the people are just amazing. And really, I know you know them. They're just really nice.
Yeah.
So it was a very welcoming team. I remember the interview process feeling I would like to work with these people. And there are people like Nati who are doing amazing. There's Moshe Mayafi. There's people who are doing really, really good things. And I saw the product, right? So I saw what was in there. And I think, part of the problem that people have is they make a decision based on outdated information. I remember John Mueller talking about Wix. These reputation things linger on.
Yeah.
And so I saw there was a story here to tell, and I happen to like brand marketing because I think, and by the way, I think there's a tremendous overlap. It's another conversation we can have between brand marketing and SEO.
Oh, 100%.
A ton. And people don't appreciate it. When you say it, they're like, well, that sounds crazy, but it's not. But I like the psychology. I like there's actually philosophy behind it because you're talking about how to create identity or how to change identity or how to. And once you talk about identity, you get into philosophical concepts. I really geek out about that kind of stuff. So it was SEO, it was brand marketing, which I really enjoy also, and there was a really cool story to tell. So that's kind of why I decided to do it, and it was a challenge. I'm like, all right, let's see if I can do this.
Well, I remember when you started, obviously I was probably, celebrating from the rooftops. But when you looked online relating to Wix and SEO, there was pretty much negativity. And I think just saying, look, this is what it's like now. Doing 1,000,001 podcasts and interviews and everything and writing many blogs everywhere. I think that's slowly away. When people search for things now, thanks to all the amazing people who's all they've done is just give an up-to-date account.
That's really it. And it was, the product team was releasing things. Again, it was like all these things happening at one time. The product team was releasing things and release bot log reports. So you have to do literally nothing to get server log data and have it in a chart. Yeah. Nothing. You just have to log into Wix and click on a button. So there was, things coming out constantly. There was just talking about it. There was asking for feedback. There was having conversations. There was, if you have a question, I'm happy to, and you have a complaint, I'm happy to talk about it and have a conversation. I was talking to an SEO, a big name SEO, and we're talking about her website and, we're maybe moving it to Wix and blah, blah, blah. And she said that one of the reasons why I want to move this site to Wix, the site that I have, is because not just the product, but the way the whole team speaks about and communicates about the SEO regarding the product and SEO in general. Just putting out information, being helpful, being supportive. I think it's something that is refreshing to see, which goes back to our complaint about SEO in general. It's just kind of refreshing to be able to put out like content around SEO that's just really helpful, no slant. I really enjoy that as a person.
I think one of the things that sticks out is obviously a few people that work at Wix are active online, and not one person has ever said, I don't want you to tell me what you think's wrong with it. You know, that's been everyone, yourself and everyone's wanted this feedback so they can constantly improve the product.
There's always something. I remember I did an article for Search Engine Journal about structured data in Wix. And I think it's one of the areas where we've gone from, 0 to 10.
Oh, 100%.
Amazing what's gone on in there, especially more recently with being able to edit the out-of-the-box markup on single pages, the single vertical pages, which I'm sure I saw you were very happy about. But there are still gaps, like certain custom dynamic pages. It's hard to implement structured data on those kind of pages. You have to use a dev tool. We own that. Like that's something that's on the agenda. So when I wrote the article, I'm like, you know what? And this again, another marketing lesson for you if you're listening to this podcast or watching this video. I'm not hiding that fact. It's if you're doing SEO on a Wix site, it's important to know, right? Because now you're going to say, okay, I created this page. Maybe I shouldn't create this kind of page if I want to do this, or I'll create this page, but I know what I'm getting myself into when I do it. I know how to use code. I know how to write code. I love JavaScript. Great. I have no problem. Then go ahead. But as an SEO, it's important to know the limitations of something so you know how to best behave and interact with the platform. And SEO is like Crystal Card always says, SEO is you're about getting around things and working around things. This is something you have to work around. So why wouldn't I be upfront about it? By the way, I think because I was upfront about it, Search Engine Journal came back to me and said, hey, we don't normally ask brand people to write about their own brand, but we love what you did in the structured data post and how it wasn't a silly kind of thing. It was just information. Would you mind writing a post about, some things tips to use, tips around using Wix for SEO?
Yeah. But I mean, from an outside perspective, you do seem to know pretty much everyone in the industry. Does that sort of help?
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I'm going to say. Moving the conversation away from Wix to the general SEO population, what would you say is the one ultimate thing that really needs to change in the industry?
I don't know if there's like one thing.
I know that we could list about 1,000, but if you was to sum things up, that basically if this would change, it would create a huge impact for many people in the industry.
I think it would be to not, and I'll put myself on the line here a little bit. Don't just look at what people are saying. Like, yeah, that sounds great. That's like, oh wow, they put a 20-page blog post, but they must be really smart. Like, think into it. Like, does it actually make sense? Does it not make sense? Does it make sense in a certain context, but not in a certain context? Which, by the way, is most likely the case. Like, this makes sense in one context, probably doesn't make sense in certain, or it makes sense to an extent. Like, I'll put myself out there. I'm very much all about like thinking about the way Google algorithmically behaves from a very like wide lens angle. But that means that I'm giving up. When if you take my advice, you're probably giving up on things like, adding the word best to your title tag, which I do for one of my podcasts, but I'd stop. I couldn't tolerate it anymore, but I still left a copy on the page, whatever. But you're kind of giving up on that kind of mindset, which could bring you immediate results that are really, really important, right? So contextualize, like take what I'm saying, but put into context. Like, That's a long-term kind of strategy. Short-term, you may not want to take my advice.
Yeah. I'm going to say you mentioned your podcast there. I'm going to say, I think I've lost track because you do so many things. But I'm going to say, why? I mean, where can people find your podcast, and why do you do podcasts? What's the reason behind it, you personally?
So first things, I never had you on the podcast yet, did I?
No, not yet.
Oh, dude, you got to come on the podcast. So
Yeah,
I don't know, what's your availability? Same time now, August 3rd. Let me know if you're available.
Okay, I'll check the diary.
Okay. Second thing is, I don't know. I got a big mouth. I like to talk. I'll tell you the truth. Like, I used to be a teacher. So part of teaching is, let's say it's, to quote Yogi Berra, who's a baseball player from the US, half of the game is half mental, half physical. The other 90% is what is it? I can't get the quote wrong. 90% of the game is mental. The other half is physical. But when you're presenting information to people, so whatever split 60, 40, 70, 30 is content, and the other half is presentation, is entertaining people, keeping people engaged. Right? You can be a great teacher, tons of information, but if you can't keep those kids engaged, you are dead.
Yeah.
So I've always liked that balance of presenting. I like to give over information because that's why I went into teaching. And I also appreciate the part of it that is keeping people engaged. So I think that podcasting is like the natural format where I feel best able to do that.
Yeah, I must admit, when you actually said, yeah, sure, I'll come and jump on your interview series, then I sat back and thought, oh, shit. I'm interviewing the interview king here.
I don't know if I'm the interview king, but first off, I was flattered that you asked me. And two is, I don't know. I kind of feel like these kind of things shouldn't, I think maybe that's why I like podcasting, because it shouldn't be intimidating. You're going in front of an audience, 2,000 people at a conference. You're like, oh man, all these people. But when you go on a podcast, we're talking to 100 people, 200 people, 2,000 people, 2 million people. I don't know. Right now I'm just talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, I think obviously this series, you're my first guest, and it's called the Unscripted SEO Interview for a reason, because I didn't want to direct the conversation. Because depending on what was said, depends on the flow we go down. And I think it's so important for the industry to hear these things. And I know you talked about what needs to be changed. And I mean, there's a lot of case studies online published. Not as many as there used to be, but there's still a few case studies. And what I've found in every case study, it lacks, what's the word? The relationship, I'd say. So for me, I recently read a case study and I thought, well, this will only work if you are a recognized brand everyone knows. Why don't you tell that to people? Because what's going to happen, they're going to go online, they're going to try this stuff and waste a hell of a lot of time and energy and money because nobody knows them yet. And I think it just winds me up.
You're getting me here, because one of the things I don't like about SEO studies, when you're say in grad school, or you're doing your thesis, you're in doctorate school, or you're going for your PhD, what does the study start out with? It has the abstract and then the limitations. Why? Because everyone wants to talk about their faults right away? No, because unless you contextualize the information, it's pretty much worthless, right?
Yeah.
I always try to start off with here's what I did. Here's what I didn't do. I only looked at these kind of keywords. I only looked at X number of keywords. I only did this. I don't know this, right? If I'm doing a case study on analyzing the algorithm, I don't know Google's algorithm. I ain't look at tons of cases. This is just what I happen to look at. It's what I saw. Take it for what you want. And I when someone does that, it makes me A, trust them, and B, I appreciate it because I'm able to contextualize what's in there. You can't contextualize. I'll tell you, like last year, they had me judge the Search Engine Land Awards. And I don't know, like I was like talking to Carolyn Lyden, who was at Search Engine Land at the time. Like, I don't know if I'm doing a bad job here because I'm giving everybody like 3s on everything. And she's like, why? I'm like, because like there's no context. It was like, yeah, we did this. Here's the result. Oh, like, yeah, okay. Like, what was your thinking behind it? Why did you do that? How did you do that? What were the nuance along the way? Because at the end of the day, if you're one of the people submitting to an award, if you're getting a judge like me, because maybe I'm an outlier. Yeah, I did this. There's the result. Like, okay, everybody does that. Like, that wasn't novel. To me, what was novel was the diagnosis of the problem. Here's how we figured out there was this problem, and then we did the solution. The solution, yeah, we figured out what key. We wrote some content. Like, the solution's not usually that complicated. Or, yeah, we saw there was a technical issue, and yeah, we fixed it.
Yeah, I think that can be said the same for some, not all, but some SEO talks. You know, it's basically, you know, here's a famous brand everyone knows. We did these tweaks, waited a few months, and look at this spike that's going up.
Yeah, pretty much.
And basically, that's it. But oh my God, I can't believe the time's running away. I know we could spend hours and hours talking about this, but just
but your listeners will probably jump off a cliff.
Yeah, just to end, if say you are working on a brand nobody's heard of, what are the 3 things you should be mindful of as an SEO?
One is, where do I start with because there's so many ways you can phrase this, or so many different shades of this. Start specific, right? And this could be like when you're doing keyword research and you see like, oh, 0 search volume. I'm not doing that. No, start with that, because it's really when searching is kind of like a courtship. I'm not going to sleep with you on the first date, right? I'm not going to marry you on the first date. Google's not going to rank you number 1 if I put up one page about, targeting the keyword shoes. If you want to rank for shoes, it's going to take you a long time. That's what I think people go, big domains. Google's not biased. Google has an understanding of that domain. It's been around for a long time. It's able to contextualize that domain. It's able to trust that domain. It will rank that domain. This will be most of the time it happens going to be a big domain. What you need to do is start off giving Google an understanding of who you are and what you do. And that could mean starting off with some of the longer tail things, which don't have a ton of search volume, but that has a tremendous amount of SEO benefit because you're giving Google an understanding of this is what I do. And that, by the way, be segmented. If you're shoes, don't go for shoes. Like, what is it unique about you and your business that lets you compete with Nike? Right? Forget ranking, forget Google. You're selling shoes online. So like, obviously you think you can compete with Nike. Forget about the rankings as a company, as a brand. So what is it that's unique about you that lets you think you can do that? Because clearly you're not Nike. So go for that. Start with that and expand. And that's that's where brand marketing and SEO overlap. You wouldn't start going for shoes as your brand and for your brand marketing. You would start with the niche. Like, how do I speak to my very, very core target audience? And then you would branch out from there. So again, the same thing. And that plays itself on how you do keyword research. It plays itself on how you talk about content and what kind of content you're targeting. And you'll find it's kind of what the animals blog post I was telling you about. And I did a study on this a long time ago, also very similar kind of thing. The SERP starts opening up for you when you do that.
Brilliant. So Mordy the person, is there anything the SEO community can do to help you?
No, I'm good.
Brilliant. That was easy. And just to finalize things, where can people find you and what sort of conversations would you like to have with them?
Let's see. I'm mainly on Twitter at Mordy Oberstein is my handle. Like kind of LinkedIn more these days than it used to be. I find like LinkedIn is kind of more vibrant than it used to be. Conversations, we could talk about anything from General Tso's Chicken, which I love General Tso's Chicken, to anything like SEO, baseball, SEO again, content marketing, brand marketing, CMSs. I'm pretty much down for anything.
Brilliant. So it doesn't just have to be about Wix.
No, not at all.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And
My pleasure.
I'm going to say there's so much been shared. I'll have to recap. And like I said, and it will get shared on my website and we'll share it around. But thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. And yeah, I always say, no matter how long you've been in the industry, there's always something new to learn. And today has proved that.
Well, thank you for having me and being a wonderfully gracious host.
Thank you, Mordy. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye. You've been listening to the Unscripted SEO Interview Podcast with me, Mark A. Preston. Join us next time as I interview more top SEO professionals.